Wes Pollitt, director of the KSI and real life documentary that's taking Amazon by storm, joins me today on Back to the Movies. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. This is so nice. Thank you for inviting me to come speak to you.
Hey, absolutely no problem. Thank you for checking out the review. That email that I got from you the other day saying that Amazon had sent you the review. I was like,
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
Like, yeah, appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank
it's on IMDb and it's the best one we have on there. So of the critics reviews. So yeah, I got sent it and I was like, this is Sean who I'm going to speak to on Monday. So yeah, it was nice actually because I then thought, well, okay, he's not going to try and like screw me over here. He's actually into the film. So I felt like it was quite a safe space. I thought, okay, well, that's good. He's been decent.
Yeah, I come with good intentions. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
yeah, I can see.
But yeah, first and foremost, man, the very simple question: how did you end up becoming involved in the documentary right from the start?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a long story, but I'll keep it kind of brief. Is that I had worked with Louis a while ago, Louis Theroux, the exec producer, and this was during COVID though. That I actually got a phone call saying we have a new project. I don't know if you know of KSI, but it might be something you're interested in. I did know who he was, and I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Like I was really interested in doing something about YouTube and something that I felt, it's something that we all know. And I watched loads of YouTube, but it hadn't really had a film or anything. I thought that had taken it into sort of like maybe the mainstream. So at that point, I just knew it was a project with him, and so I was like, definitely sounds great. Then yeah, then JJ and I spoke on a Zoom. We got on, and that kind of thing started just to roll from there. And it just a few more conversations, a few more meetings. Amazon were involved, and then the whole thing got picked up, and that's about 2 years ago now, I think.
Wow, bit of a whirlwind then.
Yeah, yeah, it's been like everything. It's been like my sole focus pretty much. When you make a film, any film, it does consume you, and this one was a big one and a big opportunity for me. So I hadn't made anything on a streamer yet, and I was keen to sort of see how the transition was from doing something that was, maybe an hour on television or like a series of so many parts to just doing something that's 90 minutes on a big streamer global, and JJ's a global sort of character. So it was an interesting experience.
Yeah, now the connection with JJ is definitely goes back for a few more months than what many people realize because you actually featured very briefly in an Impulsive episode with Logan Paul over in America when you were following him
Yeah.
around. So that was the first kind of introduction that I had to you as part of this introduction to the world of what the documentary was going to be about. And it's safe to say that most of the documentary seemed to have been shot as a small crew, or was it just you two traveling together and getting the most intimate documentary possible?
Yeah, so yeah, I'll tell you a very brief story about that impulsive thing, if you're interested. But I think
Go
it's
for
quite a
it.
bizarre one. I think it's quite a good one. But just to say, yeah, the sort of style of documentary that I like to do is I really want the audience to feel like they're in the room and sort of have that kind of prime position in those intimate moments, and in fact in most of the moments in the film. So I shot most of it myself. It's how I like to do it. I do the sound myself. So at times it's often just me and JJ in the room, or just me and the people that I'm filming in the room. I have a really great producer that I work with. I work with lots, but one really good one. And so she was always with me, setting things up, always sort of to the sides, and just really helped in that story. So Sophie and I were on this journey together, really. Yeah, but yeah, I kind of like to shoot it myself and do the sound and have that kind of intimacy so that you sort of peel away layers. And I guess the big one of the big things about that for me is I just think it would be so strange when you're documenting something or somebody to then ever like say action to another camera operator, or to have someone just like break the moment and attach a mic. Like it's so much of the environment in which you film is real, and it's all sort of quite fragile, if you know what I mean. Like everyone's emotions are, the energy in the room is. So if you start like reminding people that they're on camera, you immediately sort of create a kind of block towards like that being as authentic as it can be. It's always going to be different when there's a camera there, but I still think you can capture things sort of, I suppose, like you might see the way that some, you go to weddings, as a wedding photographer that nobody even knew was there but took amazing pictures.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing you don't want to be the person that's interrupting the scene with your energy. You want to be soaking it up, capturing it, and then when you need to step in to sort of heighten it or explain it, or to sort of kind of put the audience of a bit of an anchor in that moment, just to understand what is this thing that we're seeing and feeling. um
Yeah.
So then just very briefly, so that little moment with Logan and JJ and Impulsive was it's kind of funny because JJ was like just doing his thing and he was having a chat. And we flew to LA and they were about to launch Prime. And so I was going there to shoot the very first like launch of Prime on, they did it on a sort of the platform, JJ and Logan did it on a sort of swapping their streams. And it was a kind of, they had a sort of clever angle for it. And there was a load of stuff set up. We were in Howie Mandel's studio in LA and there was like loads of things were just going well that day. And it looked like it was going to be great. And as I said, I film myself, I have a lot of equipment. And I just like, in that instance, I just threw it on my back. We were filming in Walmart and I turned around at one point and I was like, where's my bag gone? And I thought Sophie, my producer, had picked it up and gone with the bag. So we just filmed and filmed, dashed into the car, over to the studio. You know, everything's quite quick and you have to move. You know, you don't stop or slow things down. Got to the next studio and I realized that my bag had actually been stolen and all my equipment had been stolen right from at my feet in the middle of it was the middle of a Walmart on the outskirts of LA. And so I had like a massive moment to film with Logan and JJ. I had the moment they were going to launch Prime and I had 30 minutes left in a battery and about 26 minutes on a card. And so I figured I had 30 minutes left till the show was just gonna, till like the doc was done for the day and for the foreseeable, because all the equipment was sort of set to my camera. It's quite designed. You can't just buy it. You got to get it from somewhere. And then I've got to, you know, customize it to my rig. And I was like, this is going to be so painful. So actually, when I was shooting that stuff with Logan, I was just like, all I was thinking about was what I'm going to do next. Like, what am I going to do?
Just praying that your battery lasts, sort of thing.
Yeah. All I was doing, I was thinking, they're going to talk for at least an hour, then I'm going to miss the link. So what am I going to pick? So it was just fortunate. I managed to record a bit of that. But really, I was just mentally, I was just doing autopilot. My head wasn't in anywhere in that scene or what we were doing. I was just thinking, how am I going to get this kit back? And then, sorry, not making it too long, but then thankfully we had someone who was from an American team who was on with us to validate our insurance, really. But he was a local, he knew everybody. So I asked him if he'd just go out and go and see if he could find like somebody, you know, with the equipment. And just so happens that, well, in LA, there's so many now like homeless encampments and people living rough. And there was just so many pockets of people living on the street. So he went out and apparently he just went around the corner and within 5 minutes, he just saw the bag sitting there and it was just next to these guys. And so I said, just offer any money you can, just get the bag back because we need to keep filming. And yeah, he went up. I think he gave him all the, like as much money he had in his wallet at the time. I think he gave him $350. Picked the bag up, was like, cool guys, walked away with the bag. And as he did, they all jumped him and to try and get the bag off him. But thankfully he'd done jiu-jitsu for years, but got in a big fight, came back with big swollen knuckles, a bit of a mess. And sort of said, there's your bag. And when I unzipped it, unbelievably, nothing had been, the bag hadn't even been opened by the guys. Like,
yeah, I was going to say they've taken the bag run and then they just don't know what treasures are inside just yet. So you got it just in time. That's
it. You'd have thought, yeah, you know what they're going to do with those lenses and things, but there was nothing. The jacket was in there, my sunglasses, like things you thought, well, they might be, you know, stuff you could have right away. But yeah, I mean, I had lost sight of the bag now for over 3.5 hours, and everything was complete. And so then nobody knew, just switched the new battery in, put a new card in, and shot the rest of the day like it was the most normal thing.
See, ever. Now I'm glad you've said that story, because now everyone else who's watching now can relate to that struggle, what goes on behind the scenes. It's not all glitz and glamour. It's not all Prime promos. There's actual press and stuff going on behind the scenes, much deeper than what you see.
Horrible stress. Generally, it was really a moment of like, oh my God, I've never had this happen before. And there's nothing I can do. I've got 25 minutes or 26 minutes to figure this out. Yeah. And then the card's done and then the whole thing's done. So yeah.
That's crazy, man. Well, just rewinding back to what you said about being a camera with a one-on-one situation, so it's more intimate. How important was it for you to balance KSI the persona versus JJ the person?
It was interesting because when I went into it, I only knew KSI as the character, and I didn't know really what JJ would be like. And there was always that worry that, you know, you could see KSI was a sort of caricature, maybe an emphasized version of JJ. But the worry was, you know, does JJ have like the depth that matches the sort of scale of the KSI character? Then over time, the thing that really kind of made me realize that there's so much more to JJ, and JJ is actually a far bigger personality and character than the KSI sort of caricature, is that, you know, we would be doing things, we'd be going to like big events or big moments, and I would be with JJ, and I'd ask him about like how he was feeling as a normal documentary, you know, like you're about to go do something big, you know, like what you feeling inside, how you know, you worried about this, you conscious of that, what you focusing on. And he was always so calm, and it was like KSI felt bulletproof. There was nothing that bothered KSI.
Yeah.
He would often sleep before massive events, and like the sort of thing people would be like, "Oh, would you put that in the film?" But I mean, you can't have people sleeping in a film. It kind of kills all the energy, and it's a bit flat. You know, just someone sleeping. It's not a good. That's not what Amazon want. That's not going to get in viewers. But he was so calm. But as JJ, there was a lot more emotional investment in the things in the parts of his life, which at that point, I don't know that he really knew were missing. So it was more that over time, I realized that JJ was more fascinating than KSI, and there was much more to JJ than I think had ever really been explored, because everyone was sort of more interested in the KSI character than the truth of JJ, who would have nerves about emotional things, but never about career things.
Yeah, and with you guys traveling a lot together to film this documentary, was there always a fine line to tread between what I imagine became friendship, but also versus working relationship, so you got the footage you need? Was there kind of a dilemma for you there?
Yeah, there was, and it was always it's interesting because you know, you have to. I always have to be, you know, I have to sort of take myself out of it, and JJ was the subject of the documentary, so I have to be very aware that you don't become too pally, you know, and then don't want to put in sort of, you know, ask the sort of maybe the harder questions or ask the things that make him feel uncomfortable. But at the start, we always spoke about the film being like real and very honest, and JJ and I both agreed that that was sort of the hallmarks of a good film. And so he has a really quite incredible sort of honesty about him. I don't know how he can be so honest at times. You know, some of the parts of the film, I'm amazed that he would speak to me about them, but he was great, and he honestly was like, you know, I'll tell you what I honestly feel. And when you do that and you've got that trust, and I always said I'd be there for the, you know, the best moments, but also I needed to be there for the lowest. And once you get that relationship going, then you know, there is a bit of trust there. But again, if it's all right to tell you a little story, I don't know if this is, I'm not trying to take up, you know, too much time
Go for
one
it.
question, but I feel like this is quite a nice thing if people have watched the film, maybe to look back on or to realize. But there's one particular moment in the film where I think like our relationship was sort of forged in the film, and I think it was a really significant moment when JJ's working on his excuse me, on his tour rehearsals, and he's at the studio with the guys, and he's working on his set, and I just asked the question, or he sort of said, "Oh, I'm not going to do that track. I'm not going to do that." And other guys went, "Oh, okay, cool. It's a good song, but fine." And I was just curious, so I just said, "Oh, why won't you do the track? Why won't you do the song you?" And he kind of clams up and he says, "Oh, it's just I don't really want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it right now." And he sort of pushed me away for the first time, and I hadn't seen him do that yet, and immediately worried me, because I was like, "Oh no, is this where we're going to be now, in a sort of celebrity film where he just says no to stuff, and then that's the thing, like he won't talk to me about it, so there's nothing. It's not even a choice whether we can include it. It's just I'm not going to tell you." So I was worried about that. And then we went on and filmed, and he did his performance, and he was amazing in rehearsals, worked so hard, and he seemed to get a lot of energy out in that scene. There's a lot of raw emotion I think he's kind of pouring out on stage. Then afterwards, he sits down, and you know, I was asking him questions, and obviously now I realize he was feeling quite low and he's being kind of hard on himself, which he often is actually. I mean, hard on himself. And I said, you know, how did it go? You know, it's amazing. I thought it was so cool. And he was like, "Yeah, it was all right." I was like, "You know, but do you not think you're talented?" And he just kept pushing back on the idea about having any discernible talent, about all of it sort of like being like luck. And I honestly was like, that's just not like, JJ, that's not true. You can get lucky, but you can't get lucky this many times. There's got to be an element of talent. So we would, you know, I think we're speaking for about an hour, maybe 40 minutes or something, and just having like a back and forth. Yeah. And after a while, he started to just get a bit annoyed with me, and I not annoyed, but I guess sick of my questions. So we had that bit about in the film where I say to him, "Well, you know, what if I just want to be a footballer now? Like, you know, could I do it?" And he said, "Well, no, you know, if you wanted to.
Yeah, I did notice that because there were kind of there was because that scene where he's talking about getting rid of you from the set list. It's kind of like
Yeah.
the emotional resonance of the documentary because that song is referenced a lot. So you can tell it's a time in JJ's life where he's going through something, and obviously that's your job to try and explore that. But at the same time, like I said, trying to balance that friendship with the working relationship. To actually go through that part of the film, get the edit all together, was that JJ's decision to have that song play such relevance, or was that you as the director's choice to kind of use that song to explore the emotional resonance to kind of connect that with the audience?
Yeah, it was, to be honest, yeah, I don't think JJ really kind of understood what that moment meant because not to stay too long on it, but in that moment when we kind of push each other back and I say, well, you know, okay, so why won't you play the song you? Then he tells me the real reason. I remember thinking, wow, he is actually incredibly honest. And this does say a lot about him. And so leaving that even back and forth, I felt like showed the honesty in which he has, or maybe he does want to pull things back, but this isn't going to be a regular celebrity film where they don't tell you. He will eventually open up. And I got back in the car that evening thinking that if we can still go and film him the next day, then we're going to have a great documentary on our hands. But if JJ, you know, if I get a phone call saying, yeah, JJ's unhappy with you, they want to switch you out, you're not the right director for this, I was like, well, that was the moment I blew it. You know, I kind of knew that was a moment of like make or break in the film. And so I don't know if the thing is, I don't think JJ ever did. I think he was just like, yeah, of course, like ask me a hard question, no problem. And it's to his sort of to his credit that he was that way. So that's why I wanted to include it in the film, because I think it was the first sort of unpeeling of a layer that was deeper than you normally see on YouTube.
I think for me, that was the catalyst that started that sort of emotional journey. That's when the film started to really explore JJ as a person, as opposed to KSI, the persona that we'd seen to the introduction of the documentary. A particular poignant scene with KSI and his dad was something that I wanted to discuss with you. Yeah. It's quite unusual for me as a viewer to be watching an intimate moment between father and a son, and a strained relationship that they clearly had when JJ was being brought up. But personally, I felt as though it was something that should have been occurring behind closed doors, but it has a positive message. So why did you feel it was necessary to film that moment, and was it awkward for them both to have that scene play out on camera?
Yeah, well, I know in your review, I remember you said you felt a bit uncomfortable about it, and I mean, the honest, I thought that was very honest, because I think it is quite uncomfortable. It is something that you wouldn't.
But it needs to be addressed, doesn't it?
Well, I felt, yeah, I felt like it did, but I also felt like, again, in a way, it sort of mirrored the earlier scene of JJ when he opened up to me and about the track You. It felt like, when you're making a documentary, sometimes you're in a funny position where I knew what JJ was feeling, I knew what his parents were feeling, because I'd been speaking to them both, and both of them were sort of telling me things, and I could see how things could probably be corrected, but it isn't for me to put them together. And I didn't set that scene up. I didn't make it happen like that. But the conversations between, them knowing a bit more about him, or hearing sort of just how he was feeling through my questions to the parents, and vice versa to JJ, I think just kind of brought that them meeting together a bit sooner perhaps than it may have done otherwise. So G-Day really wanted to go and see him and have that conversation. And I just said, could I come along? I think it would be amazing to see how JJ reacts. I always say that if something feels important, I think, can we film it? We don't have to use it. And I always make that a caveat, but I would love to sort of just to see what happens. Because honestly, I didn't know. And I think that JJ was really unsure of what his dad was going to say. It honestly was. There was no sort of do-overs. There was no rehearsal of it. It was just like, they're going to talk. And I think there's an element as well of me being in the room with the camera. Somehow kind of maybe normalized it a little bit for JJ in a way that without that, it just would have been very intense. Like, I didn't have to fill any awkward silences. There weren't any. But I guess if it had all gone really wrong, there was someone else in the room to say, well, it was being filmed, so I guess this is what we're doing it for. But actually, I think the moment swept them both up in the emotion of the moment, and they really did connect. And the whole thing, like from the moment Judy walks in, as they go upstairs, I mean, that's how it happened. He walked in, they talked, they went upstairs. Judy made some very funny comments, in a row about, JJ's lifestyle, to show there was that. I mean, it brilliantly showing that difference of the understanding and the
he's talking to him about being does he cook his own food, does he do his own washing, and JJ's like, no, we've got people for that. We've got people for that.
It's amazing, and that, again, like, it's almost like comedy written. The way he did that was incredible, but it was so funny. And it was warmth, and it was just, but it was also showed his character. And then to go in from that to the poignancy of what happened later. And JJ didn't know what JJ was going to say, and JJ didn't really know why JJ wanted to see him. But I think just JJ, you know, he would openly admit that he struggles sometimes to articulate his emotions, but he just felt like he didn't like the connection he had with his son, and that it wasn't enough, and they wanted to be better. So he was doing his best to try and repair it. And I think, yeah, I think JJ felt like. I think JJ wanted it too, really wanted it actually, but didn't know how it was going to happen. So somehow the sort of conduit through filming kind of opened it up as a platform. And it was just myself in that room with the two of them, and I did the mics. I just shot it on myself again, just kept it really minimal. You know, we all like each other. There's all trust, so it felt like, okay, it's still very private and closed, and Wes knows all anyway, so there's no reason not to say it here, I guess.
Now, from start to finish, if the documentary has taught me anything, it's certainly that money doesn't always buy happiness, but hard work can prevail overall. Just for you personally, having first-hand experience of it right there alongside JJ for the journey, what other mottos could you take away from this documentary, having had the first-hand experience I just mentioned?
That's a really good question.
I just made one up as well. It wasn't even scripted.
It's really good. I'm trying to think what the motto I could take from it. I think I probably, maybe not a motto, but something I think it's really important to remember is that, you know, I suppose time is always moving forward. So while you might be building a bank of other things, success here and there, if you don't deal with the foundational stuff, then you're never really going to be as satisfied as you think you'll be. That you can't really fill the void. You know, if you've got a pain there, you can't fill it with success, I suppose. You have to kind of look at that. And it's something I didn't realize at the start of the film. The film changed in many ways across the making of it. But at the end of it, it felt like JJ probably found that interview with his own father, that conversation with his own father more complicated and more stressful, maybe more intense than playing Wembley. And I think that says a lot. You know, he put in the hard work in his family, and it brought him more happiness than putting the hard work in at Wembley. I would say. I'd have to ask him that, but I think it's probably fair to say that if he looks back in his year, he'll remember speaking to his dad with as much kind of as much emotion as perhaps he did when he played Wembley and had a sold out show.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you've already said one iconic moment of, well, I wouldn't say iconic for you at the time, having your bag stolen, but an iconic moment whilst filming, a memory that you could have whilst filming. Other than that particular occurrence, is there any other thing that you'll take away as one major highlight from the entire experience?
There's quite a few in terms of like, if I mention two briefly, being shooting Leeds festival and Reading, we did them both. Yeah. But being on stage with JJ was amazing. Like it felt so.
I bet you felt equally a star as JJ. You're like, I'm on stage. I'm here.
It just feels incredible. You can't. I guess unless I've never played an instrument like that, to be on stage, to have a kind of crowd do that, but just feels amazing. And it's not so much that it feels amazing that you feel like all eyes are on you. It feels amazing that like the energy, like the stage vibrates, the speakers are so crazy, and like the love you kind of felt, you can just hear cheers and warmth, and then whatever JJ was doing was getting a reaction. I could see he was just in his element, and that's kind of intoxicating. Like it's hard. You can see how people could become obsessed with that because it's such a lovely thing. So yeah, every time I shot on stage, and the fans were always so warm and nice, and like we're a lot of fun. I really like that. I love meeting his fans. I felt that they give us energy when, sometimes you get a bit long in filming. You kind of sometimes, question like, does all this really matter in a way? Like you're so deep in it. You think, does any of it really translate? Does it mean something to somebody? Then you speak to some of the fans, and they would just be so, you'd see the sort of, the inspiration they would take from JJ, and like genuine inspiration, and like the kind of positivity that they would feel from him. It was so lovely, and it always kind of spurred us on. And then just personally, I think there was a time in LA when I filmed that interview with him, when he was talking about his girlfriend and struggling to be in a relationship times, and just wanting to get out. And I really liked that conversation with him. He was tired, a bit jet lagged. I kind of felt the same. I was missing my family. And it was just a lovely heart to heart, and he just gave me some nice advice, and it just felt like a nice bond. That was particularly a nice moment, because it's funny when you're always asking the questions to whoever you're filming, and you're trying to, sort of open them up and make them realize or feel certain things and see their life in a certain way. And it's a really interesting moment. And I think it says a lot about the bond when the person sees that in you, and then they sort of switch it around and they see that you're tired, or they see that you're a bit worn out, and there's like a nice back and forth there. And those are the little moments that you know, they're never filmed, but they're always quite special to me.
That's really cool, man. Thank you for sharing that. I just want to say, with all that time with JJ, do you now have a lifetime subscription to Prime?
No, he did send me. He sent me a load. Well, actually, he just had loads in the house, so I used to get them, and then Mams Taylor, his manager, sent me a bunch. And I just didn't think that much. I mean, I loved it, but I just drank it. I was like, "This is great."
I only like blue raspberry. I don't. The blue raspberry.
I really liked
the new strawberry watermelon.
The grape one. But yeah, I really liked it. I drank the grape one. I was drinking a few, but the thing is, I didn't realize that they were then going to be so like popular.
Yeah.
That I had like nieces and nephews and friends and stuff like, "Oh, can you get me one?" And I wish I'd kept a few more because I could have given them. But no, I was just drinking it like after the shoot. It was a really good way to hydrate. Genuinely, good drink. But what it does it brilliantly, and it stops you using little tablets and water, which is what I've been using previously. So yeah, it's good.
It's funny because a friend of mine, Ash, he's getting like the flavors that aren't released in the UK, like imported over, and it's always like a dodgy deal. Now I'm from Stoke, I'm used to dodgy deals happening around all the time, and he's like, "Oh, do you want some Prime, bro? Like this one isn't out in the UK yet." I'm like, "Yeah." It seems like a bit dodgy, but no, the blue watermelon one I do like, and blue raspberry. I just can't believe how massive scale that's gone worldwide for people to be queuing outside of shops and things for it. It's mad.
I know. I don't. I mean, yeah. I remember being there when the guys and they were excited about it and they thought this is going to be so cool. But I don't think they could have realized. I don't think anyone would have realized how well this is done. That it would blow up in a sort of Red Bull type scale. You know, I don't think anybody could have believed that. And the fact that it isn't. I mean, I'm not a dietitian. I can't tell you about all the ingredients and how they work for you. But as far as I can see, there's nothing in it which is like, you know, loads of sugar, loads of caffeine. When you're dehydrated on a shoot, genuinely, it's amazing for that, which always happens. Then the day you realize you haven't drunk any water, and then you'd have a Huel in the bag. Sorry, you'd have which also another thing I love, but you'd have a Prime in the bag, and then crack that open, 2 bottles, and you'd be perfect.
That's what surprised me the most. There isn't a big. I thought it was just going to be a Prime advert. I've got to be honest with you. I thought. I thought at least every 10, 15 minutes there'd be some sort of hint. But the only time that I noticed a Prime bottle was in the background of, I think it was a YouTube clip. And then there was another section where Deji had just won the fight, and KSI's holding it, but the logo isn't showing. Was that something that you wanted to stay away from and just focus on JJ as a person, or was it just a complete coincidence?
Well, it was more towards the end of filming. It would just be always with JJ. He had so much of it, and he was also trying to promote it. So he would generally be. He does honestly drink it. So it would be like at the gym or different things with him. But we did a scene that I would have liked included, but you know, time you just can't get everything in. Was when they did launch it. It was actually really cool, the launch, because again, on a sort of to show how you know, 2 YouTubers, which people don't really give, I don't think, give YouTube the credit it deserves. So 2 creators that are launching a drink just via their socials, kind of independently have done it. Now I know that they're wealthy and things, but they still have done this themselves.
Yeah.
Then launch it, and then to have like fans coming piling out of schools, and like there was a college nearby, and all these kids came over, and they were being like, you know, they were like bursting out with like champagne, and people just going crazy, and like that buzz and that energy is quite a phenomenon in a way. And so I would have liked to have shown it. But you just can't fit everything in the film. But it was interesting. So it wasn't a sort of choice not to include an active choice not to include Prime. It's just that there was so many other bits as well, but you just crush stuff down, and you know, to make that rhythm and have that energy across the film, you gotta trim it sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how we're both basking in this rare British sunshine. That's just.
I know. I'm sorry. Mine's hitting another window and coming in so hard.
It's perfect timing, because I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to chat to me, Wes. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope people see the documentary and really connect with the message that you have tried to portray, and obviously JJ as well. I appreciate the time you've taken out your schedule to speak to me. But before Zoom kicks me off this particular call, could you let us know about some future projects that you may or may not be working on, if you're allowed to say?
Yeah, well, I wish I could, Sean. The honest truth is I don't know yet. I'm taking a little bit of a break, but which is always welcome. And then you get that point as a freelancer where you're just hoping the phone rings and something good comes up. So what I will say is going to have to be it's going to genuinely have to be something like, for me to feel the way I did about this project, it's going to have to be quite an opportunity. But fingers crossed, the film does well, and I get that chance to make something else.
Fantastic. I feel as though you said you liked my story, so I feel I need to get my finger out, get more successful, and then we'll get you on right behind the camera for some Stoke-themed documentary going on there.
There you go. Keep me in the loop. You must have some great stories.
I've got a few. It's been a whirlwind. But yeah, I appreciate it all the same, buddy. Thank you very much, and all the best.
Been a pleasure. Thank you so much, man. Thank you.